Have you ever wondered why we age? Do we have to even accept aging? I truly believe we don't have to accept that at all. And I can help you understand the aging process and possibly even reverse your age, so long as you are willing to go deep into your mind and question everything you've been living so far. This podcast has been the product of my obsession as just a regular dad to not only live long, to be around for my kids, but to thrive in living as long as possible. My aim is to inspire you through amazing real-life stories focusing on the mind, the body, and the spirit. We will look into the impact of trauma and methods to tap into the unconscious to tackle that stored trauma. I will go into the science of aging and aim to demystify the current technology, supplements, exercise routines, and nutritional practices. Most importantly, I'm going to learn with you. Together, we are going to crack the code to living a happy health span. Come and join me on Let's Grow Young. The first part of this episode will take you into the apparent glamour life of Lisa Butcher, a former fashion model for Ralph Lauren, someone who appeared on the cover of Elle magazine and Vogue, a TV presenter on The Big Breakfast and What Not to Wear, and actually someone who I remember as being the face of the 1990s. The second part of this episode is where we will unravel the myths of the so-called glamour life, and it taps into the problems Lisa faced with stored trauma, which forced her to listen to her unconscious using therapy known as the inner dance. A therapy which in only one session, Lisa applied to me and fixed my sleep issues, which I have had to deal with for all of my life so far. And thereby, Lisa has played a massive role with her therapy in making me feel truly energized and younger. Just to kind of give you an idea again about what my podcast is about, it's called Let's Grow Young. It's a play on words. And it actually originated through my dislike of the term biohacking. And as I've kind of been researching into why we age, what are the things that contribute to aging, I've quickly learned that before people get physically fit, there needs to be an alignment between your emotional health, your inner energies, and your physical health. And so I'm on a journey to try and talk to people who contribute into that space. And I think as we go into this, I do want to speak to people who've had a journey in their life through emotional healing. Some of those journeys, I think, have been quite traumatic to some of the people I'm speaking to. Some of them have been traumatic and inspiring. So I do want to go through and talk to people about their journeys, but always ending through the concepts and the practices that help to heal. And that's where I think your energy and health and inner dance type of therapy and coaching comes in. Does that all sound okay? Does that all
sounds great? Well?
The great thing about us getting together, it's actually come through mutual friends, through Sunil and Tara, and I think through a football match you guys were watching, the Women's World Cup.
Yes, that's right.
You guys got talking and Sunil said, well, I've got a mate who's been through something of a similar awakening. And so I think,
He didn't tell me what though. He was very he very much held your confidence. He just said you had a life change and he didn't expand.
Yeah, it's something I still struggle to bring out, mostly because I've got two kids, but it's a very tough COVID story. And so I think it's a case of my wife is a doctor, and she had been treating COVID patients and looking after COVID patients during lockdown, and I was at home with two kids, two boys. The traumas of all that was quite difficult. I had a lot of things going on in my personal life and my professional career, and this apparently lovely house that I live in was becoming like a prison for me, and through a lot of traumas at work, through a lot of traumas in my relationships at home, through a lot of things that everyday people went through with COVID, I just couldn't cope. And I guess the difference with me was the thing that that affected me the most was that I was coping with this as being a single parent at home because my wife was looking after patients and being at work. And so for me, it would have been wrong of me to talk about my problems when my wife was coming home after looking after COVID patients. So I chose to just shut up, and I chose to just stay quiet. And then one day, on the way to Canary Wharf where I work, I just ended up waking up, I don't know how, on a bench at Finchley Road Station with a bunch of guards surrounding me. And I had no concept and no idea of what had happened. And so something happened at that time, something which I'm still not that comfortable, I think, talking too broadly about. But that moment there and then was my awakening. And that moment there made me actually go inwards. So I'd been trying to sprint up a mountain all my life to get to the top of my professional career, and other things. But as you go up mountains, you come across valleys. So I decided to jump over the valleys rather than go into them. And it's only this moment that I decided to go into the valleys, and I thought, I don't actually like the person you've become. I don't like this hedonic treadmill that you're on, and I'm going to do something about it. So in order to cope, one of the things that really helped was my dog, right? And so we got a dog. The dog themselves, my Labrador, is a healer. But in doing that, I was forced to go on long walks with the dog, and I started listening to Jay Shetty podcasts. And I really, really thought, what's the point of listening to stupid trance music or drum and bass music on a walk? So I started to learn theories to declutter my head, theories to reposition my values, and I went through that, and I think I came out a different person, and so I decided to go on this journey to become a Jay Shetty certified coach myself. So I went through the study, qualified, and so on and so forth. And now I'm coaching clients who who have similar problems, similar issues. But I have a niche in health and nutrition, and so I'm also on a mission to help people around my age, which is mid to late 40s.
I'm older than you. Okay.
but I look about 10 years older. Right? So I'm on a mission to teach people my age that they can grow young, and so I've started to do another certification with Harvard Medical School recently, looking at nutrition. As I got into this world of understanding why we age and what we can do about it, I came across a bunch of ridiculous treatments or tools, which I just said, hold on a minute, I need to try this. There are certain medications and supplements that help you repair your DNA to awaken your sirtuins and your aging genes. There are certain things that people stick in their bodies. There's certain technologies. So I decided that I'm going to create a podcast. I'm going to test these technologies, and I'm going to give unbiased, unsponsored feedback into what I think of them and what the effect is having on me. Which is why I then came to the inner dance, and we'll come to my experience later on that.
Sandy, I'd love to, when we're not doing this another time, love to talk to you about the stuff that you have done.
So that's why I'm here, Lisa. And it's quite amazing. People have said to me, as I've managed to balance my head out, they've said, "Wow, what's happened to you? What have you been doing?" I've said, "Nothing. I've just decluttered my head." So that's my story. That's why I'm here.
Mine's similar.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, on your side, look, I'm amazed to have you here, and to be honest, Lisa, I'm around from the 90s. I remember you.
I remember me back in the day, my former life.
I remember you back in the day. I know that you were the Els Angels kind of competition winner of 1987. I've done my research. Your first job after school was with Ralph Lauren in New York City.
Mine more about me than I do.
My first job after school or university was as an accountant. Say, hey, I know you've had about life. You were the face of the 1990s with Vogue and Elle magazine. You've been on TV adverts. You've been on Big Breakfast that even Cal remembers, and you've worked with Chris Evans. You're a mum to what seems two lovely girls, Amber and Livia, and from what I understand, one is a singer and one is a model, right?
She's a therapist, and she also models too. A bit like me, actually.
Following your mummy's footsteps.
Yeah.
And you've presented What Not to Wear with your mate Misha Paris, and you're an ambassador for is it SOS charity?
I'm actually I'm an ambassador for Christina Noble charity. Actually,
Okay.
I've been she's amazing.
Yeah,
Looks after kids in Vietnam.
Yeah, so I guess from all that, I can see you've had a really, really eventful life, and I've not even talked about some of the roller coasters, significant roller coasters that you've had in life, and I just want to say a word about that before you get into that, because I think from my perspective, you've had what I've called real with a capital R and a trauma with a capital T, and then I think whilst all trauma is stressful, not all stresses are traumatic, and so I think it'd be really useful to understand how you manage what were the what the emotions you went through, where therapy came into it, and also, Lisa, if there's anything you're not comfortable talking about or not going into it, feel free to cut it down. And so I guess it would be a great starting point just to understand your life as it went through. You were clearly a very famous model, and how did this happen? When did this happen?
Well, that was never my goal. Okay. Fashion was never my thing, ever. I was interested in horses. That was my thing. So rewind. I was born in Singapore. I grew up in Indonesia and Bali. I had an amazing childhood, barefoot on picking up pumice stones, watching Krakatau's, smoking in the background. And I always collected animals, usually ones with like half a leg hanging off or an ear hanging off. And I just loved animals, and I loved to look after animals. That was always my passion. And as a little girl, I was always a little bit of a loner. I'm probably the black sheep of the family. I never felt as if I quite fit in. I got 3 elder brothers, much, much older than me. And while they were sent away to boarding school, I was in Indonesia, and I grew up there. And when I was 12 years old, we went to South Carolina to visit my aunt, who was quite a famous portrait artist out there. And her friend wanted to take photographs of me because he wanted to paint me. He was a painter as well. And he particularly liked me because he said I had a symmetrical face. I don't anymore because I got a bit older. But it was, before it got wonky, it was very symmetrical.
It looks pretty symmetrical to me.
And anyway, he took these pictures. He gave them to my mum. They're black and white headshots. And Elle magazine had just launched in England. We moved back to England from Asia. And I was thrown into an all-girls convent. I don't know what my mum was thinking with that one. I mean, not great, really. And in hindsight, not the best place for me. However, I didn't stay there very long because Mum sent these pictures off to Elle magazine, and she never told me. And they called me into London. I was underage. Minimum age was 16. And Mum lied about my age in my best interest because she wanted to give me the life that she could never have herself. She was very glamorous, amazing, but she never worked that way. And and I won. Weirdly enough, I won. And this was never my dream or aspiration. My dream and aspiration was to work with animals. I thought perhaps being in the mounted police would be a good idea because I like bossing people around. I love horses. Thought, great. Didn't quite realize it in my early teens that the amount of paperwork and how difficult it would be to be in the mounted police. But yeah, I won. And because I was underage, there was a big hoo-ha about it. And film crews were sent to my school, my convent, to film me. And the title was, should youngsters be doing that? Should they be sexualized at such a young age? So I guess with all the press and stuff, my career catapulted.
How old were you at the time, Lisa, when this happened?
Then I was 14.
Okay.
So I ended up winning Elle magazine on my 15th birthday. Amazing birthday present. And then I guess the rest is history. My first job it was, I had the cover of Elle, and then it was Ralph Lauren, as you mentioned. And it was just a whirlwind. And to be fair, I was doing live TV at that age, which was crazy because I'm an introvert. I'm very shy. I'm awkward around people. And I just had to do it. I had to get on with it. And I didn't know any other way. And I was so young and impressionable. I just did it. I left school early. I did finish my GCSEs, although my girlfriend did quite a lot of my coursework for me because I was working. And then we ended up moving to London, and I just traveled. I think I spent more time in Heathrow Airport than actually in a country because I was just going from job to job to job around the world, and I didn't like it. I found it really hard.
So when you took the job with Ralph Lauren, how old were you at the time? It sounds like you were 16 or 17.
I was 15.
15. Okay. And where was your head at this time? You mentioned you mentioned the whirlwind, the whirlwind, and you mentioned your dream with animals and so on.
Yeah.
How were you able to pause, if at all, and understand what was going on?
My incentive was to earn enough money to buy a horse. That was it. I was just like, this is. Yeah. Like I could have got a few like after the Ralph Lauren campaign. So no, that was my only incentive. I just wanted to have my horse. I wanted to buy my own horse, and which I kept, and I did, and I kept it at Richmond Park. And I just wanted that was my thing, horses, and that was my pure incentive. So that was my happy place. When I went off modeling, I found it. Again, I was very young. I was dressed as an adult and having to navigate an adult world. And I think I was a bit clueless. I was very shy. So I was a bookworm. I hid behind my books all the time. And yeah, it was crazy actually, something. I just think about like on my 16th birthday, I had supper with Gorbachev. Wow. It's like crazy.
I had supper with Ronald McDonald on my 16th birthday.
Did you?
but no, in all seriousness, you're with Gorbachev on your 16th birthday. How does that happen? How did that happen? No,
I didn't even know who he was. I saw the splodge on his head, and after it's my 16th birthday party. I was alone in Paris. My agency threw me a dinner. This bloke with a splodge on his head was sitting there, and I was just like, I think I kind of recognize. I was only 16, and then I was telling my parents. They were like, who that is? And I was like, no clue. And they were just like, it's Mikhail Gorbachev, and I was just like, oh wow.
Yeah. And what was your support structure like at this time? I mean, I guess living in that world now compared to when you were doing it would be very different.
Yeah. Sorry, my dog.
And your dog agrees with me, Daphne.
She certainly does. My support network was my mum. She came on every single job with me until I was 17. And at that point, when I was 17, I moved to New York. But she was my savior, because if it wasn't for her coming to every job with me, I don't know, I would have found it too difficult, and I would have run away. Because having her there is just to ground me, and to have someone fight my corner was very important. And I don't think a lot of models have that, because they're very young, very impressionable. They're asked to do things they might not be comfortable with. And for me to have my mum there, at least I had that voice to kind of just make sure I was okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so I guess we could spend several episodes just on this part of your life, but I think we can actually see you've had a whirlwind of a childhood. During this process, up to the age of 15/16, what kind of feelings could you feel building up inside, if any? Did you have time to actually consider how your inner self is feeling, and all? It just seems very transactional.
Yeah, my go-to. I don't want to go into my trauma in my childhood too much, but there were times when I was a child I felt quite unsafe, and the way that I dealt with that is by just leaving my body, just completely disassociating. And that was my go-to way of dealing with when I was uncomfortable. And I think a lot of the time in modeling, I did that. And I just felt out of control. So I just completely fell out of control. And when I was 16, I ended up getting an eating disorder. I was going to modeling jobs in Paris for the shows. They had a tape measure measuring me every day, saying I could only have a coffee and half an apple. Every day, if I put on 1 millimeter, they were like, don't eat, get out. It was, a lot of body shaming. And so I ended up very sick. I had ulcers all over my mouth, my tongue down my throat. I ended up in hospital. So at that point, and I had puppy fat. I was a baby. So being told that you're fat all the time and told that you should change this, your legs are too short, your ears are too big, your nose is too big. It was quite hard. It was hard. And all I wanted to do was get home and be with my horse. So I struggled quite a lot, but I never had therapy at that point. I only had therapy much later on in my life. But I think, I managed to deal with it by disassociating. I wasn't particularly happy. And if I look back at all my 20s, it was more like a car crash, really. It was very full on. And I was not embodied at that stage at all.
Okay.
And I was whoever anyone else wanted me to be. I wasn't me. I was who you wanted me to be.
Yeah, I'm going to absolutely respect what you said and not dwell too much on that part of your life. But clearly, you've kind of summarized what was going on there very well. Then what was the next stage of your life? And you again, I think the whirlwind seems to have continued. TV adverts, big breakfast, etc., etc. What was the next stage of your life?
Next stage of my life was meeting a bloke called Marco Pierre White. And it was one of those situations. I clearly ran into the arms of an older man looking for a father figure. I wanted someone to protect me. And I was very naive, and I chose the wrong person, essentially. And it all ended up very public. And this is the thing. My teenager years and all of my 20s was public fodder. And I hated it. I like walking down the street. I'd be like this. I didn't want anyone to see me. I felt embarrassed. If people would come up to me, I didn't know if they were they were friendly or not. And I found it really uncomfortable. Again, introvert, and shy. I found it really uncomfortable. So how did I deal with it? It was just a difficult part of my life, really. I think I just suppressed everything. And of course, when you suppress things, they will come out sideways later on. And with me, because I find it hard to verbalize my feelings, I somatized my feelings, so it would come out in illness. So a lot of the times I'd have a lot of illness and not a lot of illness. I would have illness. I'd have immune problems. And just because I couldn't speak my truth and get it out of my body, which thankfully I've learned how to do now, which you've clearly learned how to do.
I'm learning and your therapy, which we're going to get onto, has taught me a lot as well about other techniques I can use to heal myself. Again, don't want to dwell about Marco Pierre White, but you mentioned that you were looking for, and I'm paraphrasing, someone a bit older than you. It's sounding like a comfort figure. That kind of links to your past, right? It kind of links to it, and I understand that you guys met in a club that I used to go to as well. Was it Tram? Yeah. Okay, he was there, and that relationship was a short marriage in the end, right? Is it?
It was annulled right from the get-go. It was. Okay. I'd like to bring this up because this just shows that actually, when things are bad, when things are burnt to the ground and you're feeling your worst, there's always a glimmer of light. If I don't leave now, you're not going to be able to leave. And that was how I left. And this is the thing that saved me in my life. You know, when things have been really bad, I've had insights. I've had insights from, I would like to say, from source to give me information to get me out of that situation. So from that, it was quite scary at the time, seeing that vision, because it felt very real. But that was my saving grace. And that was what got me out of the situation. And I've had many moments like that, where I've had interventions from above that have put me back on the path that I'm meant to be.
And I think you mentioned a few things already around interventions from the past. You mentioned some stuff around kind of, I think you use words such as leaving your body, which is already during this period, you seem to be connecting with this therapy around inner dance and inner healing. Maybe even without knowing it at the time that's what you were doing. And this is what I'm finding interesting. I'm finding that you seem to have come to a therapy which has supported you in your life without you actually knowing that it was a formal therapy at that time. And we will come to that, and I promise you. And again, you've got a lot of pressures going on. There's a lot going on in your life again. How long after the annulment with Marco Pierre White did you start getting yourself back together again, if that's the kind of word I can use? If you know, at what point did you start getting any clarity around where you wanted to go in the future, and what did that look like?
I don't think I did. I really don't think I did. I think in my 20s, again, I felt as if I was on a very fast moving train and I couldn't get off. And I just kind of, again, suppressed everything, disassociated, and just got on with it. I was walking wounded. I had trauma stored in me. I didn't know what to do with it. And at that time in my life, I'd never heard of therapy. It wasn't something that was offered to me. So I don't know. I think I grew up, my parents married were super young. My mom was 18 when she married. And I think my main goal in life was to I know it sounds a bit pathetic, but at that age, just to get married and have kids. I wanted a stable home. That's what I wanted, stability. I wanted roots. And that was my goal.
It sounds like you just wanted a simple life, and you were thrown into anything but simple life.
Well, maybe my choices in men haven't been that simple, because the next choice was a Chilean polo player, and it certainly wasn't a simple life, like flying around the world on the polo circuit, but it was certainly very exciting.
How did you two meet? How did you meet?
That was an amazing story. So
that's Gabrielle Donso, right?
Yes, that's right. So my agent Katrina Skepper at the time was talking about her ex-boyfriend. And she was talking about this bloke called Gabriel Donoso, and that we should go and see him play polo. And I'd never been to a polo match. And of course, I loved horses. So I thought, why not? So we got to the
How could you not gone to a polo match having loved horses?
I don't know. It just wasn't I was more into dressage. Dressage was my thing. It wasn't really the sport. It was more that and like jumping and stuff rather than...
And modelling for Ralph Lauren polo. We need to explore this separately anyway.
I went to the polo match. She introduced me to this very handsome man who was Gabriel, who sat next to me. I could barely understand him because his English was so broken. However, we just talked horse the entire time. And I told him I had a sick horse, and he was just like, oh, I'll look after your horse. Come and, I've got stables here. Let's see what we can do. And then sort of that was the clincher. You just talk horse with me. And that was like, and seeing him ride, that was the bit I fell in love with, because he was part of the horse. He was a horse whisperer. So, like all the other polo players are off celebrating after the polo match, he'd be back in the stables looking after the horses. And I just thought, that's a decent guy. Yeah, he's an amazing guy, because that's the kind of thing I would do. It's not about the people, it's about the animals. So he was, I fell in love with him, and I had my children with him. So I was very blessed and very lucky, because he also comes from an amazing family who've been very supportive and incredible throughout my life, and through my life since I've met him.
And were you still modelling at that time and doing TV shows?
Yeah. I was actually. It was a bit more difficult because I was like being the polo wife and flying around following him. But yeah, I was still doing it, and still busy working and trying to juggle everything.
Okay. And then the two of you got married. When was it? Was it in the 2000s?
I don't even remember I don't remember the dates. I'm terrible with dates. But we got married. I had Ollie very early on, and then I had Amber, and then after that I found life in Chile quite difficult. It was back at the day then. It was very machismo. Women stayed at home doing the cooking, looking after children. Men went off and did what they had to do, and I don't like that, because I'd always had my own job and always done things myself. So I found that part quite difficult. And in hindsight, in my life, I've been very impulsive and jumped into things without really seeing things properly. And potentially that's what happened with Gabriel. But, we ended up parting ways, but we always got on extremely well. And we were getting back together when he died, which was very sad.
And I think, again, it was just... When I was reading all the stories, I think sadness is something that comes through very clearly. A lot of trauma there as well. But just prior to Gabrielle passing away, I think your father was quite unwell as well at the time.
Yeah, you're right. It was a tricky time, because my dad had been ill for 3 years, and Mum and I were giving him dialysis at home, and. I had the phone call that Gabriel had at the polo accident. He was in Argentina.
Had a call from his sister, right?
Correct. Gosh, you've done your research. Yes, call me sister.
Yeah.
It was the day of my father's funeral. I just buried Daddy, got home, phone rang. She said, sit down. I need to tell you something. Gabriel's had an accident. You need to get to Argentina now. And I was just like, this is a joke. It's my father's funeral today. And she's like, it's not a joke. You need to go now. So I got on the plane with my girls. And that was the thing. It's just like, how do you tell your children something that is going to change their life for the worst? How was I going to find the words to convey that their dad's dying to them? I mean, it was just, my initial reaction was protect them, don't tell them anything, keep them away from any pain, because that's kind of what I did with myself in my life. And actually, when I spoke to a child psychologist, they said it's the worst thing that I could do. I had to give them full disclosure. I had to let them feel in control and part of the situation. So when we got on the plane, they were only 8 and 10 at the time. I just said, Daddy's had an accident. We need to go see him. And then when we got to the hospital, the doctors sat down with me and the kids and told us straight what was going on. And then they went to see him to say goodbye. And then I think that night they switched the machines off. So that was, yes, my dog's saying that wasn't an easy time.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, truly sorry that you had to go through all of that. And I can't even begin to fathom the whirlwind of emotions and trauma that you were going through at the time. And particularly with the childhood whirlwind you had. But I think this is a point where, if it's okay with you, I'd like to start talking about therapy. And I'd like to start talking about healing, unless there's any other parts of the past that you'd like to also bring up at this point. How did the healing process begin, Lisa? How did the healing process?
Do you mind if I let my dog in? Because all I hear is her marching up and down. If she comes here, she'll settle. Do you mind if I just
That's fine if I can bring mine in. That's fine.
Yes. No, she's a Doberman.
A Doberman. Wow, I love Dobermans. Yeah. Lovely. Lovely. So we haven't even talked about Big Breakfast, and to be honest, I'm not really that interested in talking about it unless you really want to. I'm not sure how long you're on there for, but I could talk about Big Breakfast, Chris Evans, but I guess the part I want to really focus on is that the Big Breakfast part would have just been another whirlwind. And so, but I want to give you sufficient time to talk about healing and inner healing. So I don't really give a crap about what happened with Chris Evans, if I'm honest. I think let's talk about healing. How did Lisa begin to heal?
Okay, so through my bereavement, I, for the first time in my life, because I'd been in fashion for 30 years, I took a step back, and I was like, right. And to be honest, fashion didn't open my heart. One of my most favorite jobs was what not to wear, because there was a psychology element to dressing people. And that always interested me, and what makes the mind work. So during that time of bereavement, I stepped back I was in the middle of filming What Not to Wear, the second one. And once I finished that, I just stopped all work. I took time out to look after my mother and my children. And I used to cry myself to sleep at night every night. And I'd wake up in floods of tears every morning. And I would just patch myself up, get myself together, look after my kids, get them to school, cry all the way home. And just, it was a tough time. However, whilst I was propping everybody else up, I thought I was doing well. I thought I was holding it together. And a friend of mine said, I think you need a bit of help. And I was like, me? No, I'm fine. He was just like, no, I think you do. So I actually did proper therapy for the first time. And I saw a bereavement counsellor. And this bereavement counsellor was also a Reiki master. So I'd do the talking therapy, and then she'd do hands-on therapy with me. And I'd never done Reiki or never really heard. It wasn't in my orbit before then.
For people who don't know what it is, could you summarize what Reiki is?
Okay, so Reiki is energy work, essentially. It originates in Japan, and it is a way of doing hands-on healing where you use your body as a conduit. And you use particular symbols. You have attunements. They're different levels. And when you get to the different levels, you have different symbols. and you imagine these symbols going through you as you're putting your hands on someone, and then you actually physically feel the energy coming through your hands. Like mine will go all tingly and quite hot. And I found that I did it on my animals first, because I've always had animals, and then I started doing it on myself, and I was just like, oh, this seems to work. And it was the first time that I'd been exposed to energy work. So after I did a bit more bereavement counseling, I asked her if she could teach me my Reiki 1 and 2, which I did over 2 years. Most people do it in a weekend. I did it over a couple of years. And I really enjoyed it. And at that point in my life, I was reading so many books. I wanted to know what happened to the soul when you die. I wanted to know what happens in life after death, because in my upbringing, I always believed in reincarnation, and in Bali, it's like part Hindu. So
I'm Hindu.
I started researching what happens to the soul, what happens to you, and then I started sketching symbols. I don't know how, but I started these, and I wasn't really a drawer or that creative, and I started making jewelry. And it was more like talismans that I could hold on to give me power to get through the day. And I made Lakshmi, she was one of my first ones, and a gold Lakshmi ring, which is the Hindu goddess of abundance, isn't she? And then I did.
I'm nodding my head like I'm a devout Hindu. My mum will argue that I'm not, but yeah, I know the god you're referring to.
So yeah, and then Sanskrit symbols. And I found power in that, and then I started researching that, and then I thought, oh, I want to make things for people to carry around with them to make them feel better. And then whilst I was doing that, designing these jewelry pieces for myself, I started doing more and more courses. So I started stepping away from my old life and stepping into my new one, which is I did a year-long diploma in cognitive hypnotherapy and NLP. And it was nice for me because I've never enjoyed school very much. I wasn't interested in anything I learned. And finally, I was interested in what I learned. So I was actually kind of okay at it. So I learned that. And then I learned other different healing modalities, just for fun, really, because I enjoyed the learning. And then what else did I learn? Then I got into shamanism, which I thought was amazing.
What is shamanism?
So shamanism is, you've heard of shamans, right? Shamans are the healers, of the ancient healers, before we had allopathic medicine. So if you'd get sick, you'd go and see a shaman, and a shaman believes that they can heal on a soul level. So it's very different to allopathic medicine. So they would go into a trance state, they would help you in this trance state. A lot of times they believe that trauma comes from, if you experience trauma, whether it's a car crash, bereavement, whatever, a part of your soul breaks off. So what the shaman would do, they would do this thing called a soul retrieval. So they go into, and you can do this through hypnotherapy as well. You can go into a trance and you can see how they had their heartbreak, and you can go and pick up that soul piece and you can put it back in them. So this is all energetic work. So when I started hearing and learning about that, I thought, oh, this is interesting, because I'd learned about hypnotherapy as well. And there was a little bit of a crossover with some of the techniques. And I particularly like shamanism because it's working with spirit. And ever since I was a little girl, my brothers are so scared of ghosts. They terrified me with the idea of ghosts. So for me to actually discover shamanism and to learn about working with spirit, that all spirits aren't ghosts and they're not all poltergeists like that bloody movie. They're not all going to start spinning their heads around and flying.
I'm thinking about Only Fools and Horses when they do a seance.
I'm thinking Exorcist.
Yes.
So after learning about that, I just realized that I just picked up all of my brother's fear, so I gave it back to them. And I started my own journey working with spirit and connecting with spirit and connecting with something bigger than myself. So it's consciousness. And that is the thing that saved me the most. That is the thing that helped me patch myself back together again, I'd say, is that connection.
Okay. All right. And just briefly, how did that patching together work? I mean, clearly you had major bereavement, and so that was a major part of what the souls were picking up. But what were the other patches, and how is it all being brought together? And I'm hugely skeptical with all this, but ultimately I'm going to come back to my experience, which proved me wrong. So yeah,
Sure.
what kind of things did you find were being patched together?
So that's the thing, Sandra, right? Is sometimes we go into judgment from what people have experienced. And in my experience, I usually go into judgment when I don't understand it or when I haven't experienced something myself. So it's like a knee-jerk reaction, a bit like me and the ghosts. So I thought all ghosts are bad. Let's put it over there. And then finding out actually that was just me being really naive, that all it is spirit, is energy. And we are all energy.
Yeah.
So it made perfect sense to me that once the body's gone, there's still energy left behind. And if you can kind of tune into that, you can pick up that energy. So it might not be in the form that we know now, but it's still there. Sorry, going back to what you asked me, what were the things that really helped me and patched me back together again? I think it was giving myself time, not being in the rat race, stepping back from the rat race, and having time to gently study things without having, because I'd worked since I was 14. I never took my foot off the gas because I supported my kids and it wasn't easy. So after all my bereavement and everything, I met an amazing guy called Michael Jacobson, and he kind of took me under his wing. He saw that when he first met me, I was barely holding things together, and he allowed me the time because I didn't need to work. He supported me. He allowed me the time to step back and reflect and to be able to find out where my interests lay, because I didn't know. I was just whatever everyone else wanted me to be. So I think it was only in the past 12 years that I really stepped into who is Lisa Butcher and discovered that I have got a voice and I do have something else to offer than just my looks. And so having that time, I think, was what I needed, and it was such a big gift for me. So my healings come in from animals, from people, from my learning, and from tuning my mind into a different place. Instead of like just watching Netflix and watching crap and thrillers, I'm now watching Mattias De Stefano. I'm watching.
You're watching documentaries that I send you from Amazon.
Yeah. That was amazing. I love that. Oh my gosh. I've given it out to so many different people. That's the best. It's been fasting.
We got to that part 1 hour in and I thought, oh my God, this is what Lisa does. This is what happened to me. Yeah.
So can we talk about what happened to you?
We will. But what's actually really interesting about what you just said is, if you look at the backdrop of my podcast, I'm trying to challenge all these companies who are coming up with these mega expensive things to make you hack your biology and make you get younger. And then you've got the Blue Zones approach. And some of the technologies do work. I've seen performance-related stuff that really does work. But the stuff that you've just talked about is finding more time, community in Michael Jacobson, animals to an extent are part of the community. You talked about your values and essentially talked about decluttering your head. Most of that is free to do. It's about finding your inner self. And so I'm loving it, because my hypothesis when I started this podcast was that this is where we're going to end up. And that's what you've ultimately come back to. See, I'm just avoiding me talking about my experience. So I'm just blabbering on.
I can tell. Nice love.
Is it that obvious? So do you want to talk about my experience? Okay.
Actually, can I just mention one more thing before we go into that? You were saying that all the things that work for me. What happened when I was lived with Michael is also that I started having I worked out 3-4 times a week, so I was fit, and also I changed what I ate. I started eating healthily. I didn't eat crap anymore. Well, I did a little bit, but I'll always eat a little bit. But I didn't live on crap, so I was giving myself the right nutrients, because that was very much his influence. He's very much into fitness and health, and I never really was. But I think that helped me enough. That helped me a lot. It has to be mind, body, and spirit.
It does. Yeah, it's the alignment of mind, body, and spirit, which is what we're trying to achieve. Just very quickly on that, in terms of nutrients, what does your typical feeding cycle look like on a typical day?
Now, it's changed.
Yeah,
it's back in my 20s. I'm a bit embarrassed to say, actually, to be fair. But now I'll wake up. Okay, so I wake up and I'll have my AG greens. First thing.
AG greens, they're doing the rounds. I've not tried AG greens yet, but people like Huberman use them, so they must be pretty good.
That's how I heard about them. And I put collagen in that. So that's what I have first thing in the morning. And then I have my coffee. See, I'm not that,
What type
I have
of
my
coffee? What type of coffee?
I have a mixture of lion's mane and normal coffee, like it's
Amazing.
mushroom. And then I
Amazing.
also have a shot of espresso. Then I have a shot of what is it called, like hazelnut Nespresso.
Yeah.
So I have a bit of everything.
So I've been trying two brands for mushroom coffee, and one is Dirty and the other one is London Nootropics, and I'm not sponsored by any of them, but I have found the London Nootropics range has been really good, and the adaptogens, the adaptogens in them, such as lion's mane, some of them have ashwagandha, some even have CBD in there, and I have found that the spikes don't happen anymore, but you continue to get the benefits that caffeine gives.
Amazing. I'm gonna get some. Thank you for that little.
They're coming onto the podcast. Actually, they're coming onto the podcast. I'll tell you what. Let's not tell too many people, but I'll try and get us a discount.
Yay! Go on then.
All right, okay. So you have your coffee, and then what's
I have my
next?
coffee, and then I'm usually darting out the door because I leave before 7 to go for my walk with my dog for an hour and a half. I'm walking around Hampstead Heath.
So you've got exposure to sunlight. You've got exposure to oxygen and sunlight, fresh air. Well, as fresh as it can be.
Actually, that's my saving grace. That's my most precious time in the morning. Is that hour and a half, even if it's pouring with rain and freezing cold. And sometimes I hate it. It's really good for my head.
Yeah.
And just being around trees and being around nature and out of my thoughts and being very present.
Yeah.
That really works for me. And this is my time to go within and to kind of have that quiet time.
Yeah,
and
it sounds perfect. I think you should jump on a tube one day and come down to Pinham with your dog, and our dogs can play in the park, which has got lots of trees. But in all seriousness, your nutrition diary so far, it's greens, it's coffee. There's no kind of foods or sugars in yet there, are there?
No, but then I'll have a piece of toast. I either have bovril or honey with butter.
What time would that be? What time would that be?
When I get back from my walk, 9-ish, 10-ish.
Yeah.
And then lunch, what will I have? I eat loads of salads and soups. So if I'm cooking for myself, it'll be salad and soup, really boring. And I'm terrible though. I quite like Deliveroo. So if I'm really busy and I haven't got time to eat, I'll go and get a Deliveroo.
Yeah.
I love rice. Asian food's my thing because that's where I grew up with, and it's probably pretty Asian. My diet's quite Asian, so I'll have a lot of rice, noodles. I love the carbs, so I have to try to cut that down a little bit and have more protein. And I try to get enough veggies in the day. I probably don't, but I do try. So I know what I should eat, and I'm kind of doing it, just not.
So it sounds like a quite good routine, to be honest. There's not many. I didn't hear a lot of processed food there. I didn't hear too many unnatural sugars. So it sounds pretty decent, that is. And is there a particular time you try to stop eating in the evenings?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I snack. This is my
that's
thing.
Okay. That's okay, right? We can't.
I'd like to say I stop eating at 6 o'clock and that's it. I don't. It depends. I'm an emotional eater as well. So this is the one thing I'm really trying to cut out. So my thing was crisp and chocolate. I mean, I just guzzled.
A whole tub of Ben and Jerry's. I've been there.
Okay. We're talking the same language then. Mine's fish food. So yeah, I crisp and chocolate. So, I'm stopping doing that. So instead of like having a packet of crisps, I am there's these like dehydrated cheese things that you can get from Waitrose instead. So I'll have that instead of a packet of crisps. So I'm trying to be a little bit more healthy with my choice. And instead of sweets, I'll have a date. I'll have a fresh date. And that's really sweet. So I'm trying to get my sugars from that source rather than a packet of Haribo's, which is how I used to eat. I always associated food with a reward. And I'm still working on this, Sandra. I haven't cracked this. So,
but that's the thing, right? It's about small gains. With you have a lot of biohackers out there who are not doing anything. They're doing so many things to try and live forever without thinking about health span. And I think you have got to enjoy yourself. But for me, I want my occasional glass of wine here or there. But it won't be the habit. I couldn't operate in such a disciplined world. I think you have to enjoy yourself. So I wouldn't shoot yourself too much over that pack of Haribo that I can see in the other room as well at the moment. Excellent. That sounds great. Anything else on your nutrition that you want to mention? I did notice that after our session, you gave us some bone broth. Yeah. Is that something you take regularly?
I do. I make my own stock now. I used to just buy it. I make my own now, and that is something that I'm trying to have at nighttime, like before I go to bed. And I think it's really good for me. It's full of collagen. It's like it's. I like the savory, the salty bit of it. And when you do it in a dance process, which is what you did, it does take you out your body. So one of the things that's important to me is to ground people before they leave, just in case they're like flying high when they're walking out the door. And I don't want that. They need to be back and very aware of, very embodied before they leave. And bone broth does that. Yeah.
Excellent. I think, depending on your time, we're going to do a nutrition episode one day.
All right, then.
Which would be great. So my experience.
Go on then. So tell me what it was like.
So before I try anything, I try and actually read up everything I can about it. And so I went to your website. I read about what you do. I read about, I think on your website, you talk about paddling in the shallows before learning to swim and all that sort of stuff. You described it on the videos, and I came in highly skeptical, and because I think I've just been brought up as a macho Punjabi man, and we don't do that shit. Is what my uncles would say. But I think I've started learning that there is a whole world out there that, had a previous generation actually understood it, they probably would have lived a healthier and longer and better life. And so I went into it with an open mind, and I'm going to describe this in detail because these were actual emotions I went through. And I'm someone who's just a dad, right? I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a dad. I work in banking, and I'm trying to forge my way into a different career. Got to the 4, walked into the 4, and I thought, nah, I can't do this. I can't do this. So walked out of the 4.
You walked out?
I walked out because I just felt I'm not going to fit in. And I walked right, and there's that little coffee shop full of students on the right. So I sat there, had a coffee, and not an adaptogen coffee, a normal bloody coffee. And I thought, right, now sort yourself out. So went back in and checked into reception. Saw all these people who were dressed for the event, right? They were dressed in loose clothing, and there was me in my tracksuit bottoms and tight top. And I thought, right. Actually, no, I was wearing shorts, and then you suggested to me to wear tracksuit bottoms. And so I got in there and I thought, right, okay, these people actually seem very much in touch with their inner self, and I'm not. And so I felt totally out of place. Went upstairs into the room, and walked into this room. I'm trying to describe it for the listeners. It's basically a dark room with lots of lovely mystic smells, and it's not incense, is it? It's what do you call it? It's diffusers.
Actually, I burn copal, which I bring over from Mexico, which is to purify the space before I start. That's and that's also an oil that I use in the process as well on people.
Okay. I think I need to get that oil because
I'll bring some back from Mexico because I'm leaving tomorrow. I'll bring some back for you.
I don't want to see you on TV on Nothing to Declare being stopped at the airport.
Not illegal.
Yeah, but it smelled wonderful. So immediately there was a calming feeling walking in. You got the mats on the floor, so I start to feel at ease. And then you asked us to step up and dance, so I start to feel uneasy again. So this is where we got up and we started shaking.
Not dancing, shaking. Yeah,
it was a shaking. And so I could see people really into it. It was my first session. I wasn't quite getting into it, and I was trying to stop myself to break out into doing Bhangra. But and I'm not just making that up. Seriously, I almost did. But then, as I was doing, sorry, as I was doing some more research about the inner dance, in an article, you once said that you have to shake the trauma out of your system, and you compared that to lions. And in fact, I also compare that to my dog. When the dogs do that thing and they're not even wet, they're doing it because they've got a little bit of stress and they're letting that stress go. So I totally get why you did that and why you do the shaking of the trauma. And so I get it now. At that point in time, I didn't quite get it, but I get it now. Going into the actual process, I don't sleep, and so I've been to the London Sleep Clinic. I've had wires coming out of me. I've had sensors and everything coming out of me, and I've not been able to sleep. And so when we lie down on the mat, we'll say, close your eyes and try and be comfortable. And I could get why people might fall into some deep kind of meditative sleep. And then some people around me start to cry, and others started to hysterically laugh. And others were making noises I've not heard before, and there was loads of stuff going on. And I just thought, and I was swearing to myself thinking, F me, there's something going on here. Why am I just lying here thinking about what's for dinner, right? And then I thought, right, okay, close your eyes, close your eyes. The point where I felt something start to change was, you're going to tell me off for this, but after the session, I asked you if you put a stone on me. And you said, no, it wasn't stone. It was titanium or something, or crystal.
Oh, yes.
It was some form of crystal you put on me. That is when I thought there's something going on here, because that crystal, I could feel heat penetrating into my body. I could feel it penetrating in my chest, and I had to open my eyes to see if there was a flame on me. And at the same time, you were bonging this drum.
Bonging the drum, brilliant. Terminology.
Yeah, and so I thought, hold on a minute, you've come into this so judgmental, but you're now beginning to feel something. And because of that incident with the crystal, that's when I thought, right, there is something here. I need to come back for another session, and I need to try this again. So I got up, and I could see the impact it had on everyone else. And I'm just wondering to myself, why haven't I had this impact? Have I come out too judgmental? Sat downstairs afterwards, had a bit of bone broth, had a good chat with everyone else. But then things start to change when I got home. And I think you had said, actually, when we went home, that some of you may experience some emotions when you get home. You may feel a deep sense of relaxation. You talked about trying to have a bath and all that stuff. Yeah. And I got home, and literally just in the room next door, it was around 7 p.m. I was sat on the sofa watching TV, my dog next to me. Next thing I know, I'm feeling some licking on my face, and I'm thinking, oh, wait, what's this then? And and it's about 5 or 6 in the morning, and my dog's licking me and looking at me confused, and I'm confused, and I'm thinking, what's happened here? Yeah. And I've had the most deepest sleep I've ever had in my life that day. And then my wife said that apparently I was walking around downstairs at 3 a.m. and I've got no recollection of it. No recollection. Wow. And then so I think the next day I emailed you to tell you this experience. And that's when I thought, wow, there is something about this. There is something about this that works. And if someone who's been to the London Sleep Clinic with the experts in sleep, or trying to get me to sleep better, and they've not been able to, and I've had one session with Lisa, and I've slept like a baby on the sofa, there's some connection that's gone on here. And so I think the way I conclude with it is that going in as a skeptic, I've come out as an absolute fan, based on the fact that I slept really well that night. Yeah. But I still think I need to learn more. I think I need to learn more about that connection with myself, connection with some of the monsters and demons in my history that I need to address. And had I not had that effect with my sleep, I would have remained skeptical. And so I'm definitely coming back. I'm definitely coming back to try it again. And I'd recommend that everyone else does as well.
Oh, so glad to have you there. It's interesting how it works, isn't it? Because most of these things is in the process that you expect to feel things. But that's the thing with this in a dance is it stays in you and it comes out sometimes days afterwards. And that's the thing that people don't expect. And that's the thing that when I first had my inner dance experience, it blew me away. I'd never had such a huge experience with anything. I mean, I had what you would call a Kundalini awakening when I had my first inner dance experience. I had not, at that point, not done plant medicine, but it was, I guess, a plant medicine journey because I had full-on visuals. I was literally levitating off the floor. And it changed the way I looked at life in one session. It was extraordinary. And when I finished that session, it took me about quite a few hours until I could verbalize how I felt afterwards. And that was the point. I was just like, I have to learn this and bring it back to the UK because all of the learnings that I've done over the past 15, 16 years compared to this 1 hour session, that was all like null and void. And this 1 hour session changed me more than anything else. Changed the way I looked at life, changed the way I looked at myself. I saw how everyone was connected. I saw love. I saw it everywhere. I had visions of who like in the future, in the past. It was extraordinary. And I never thought that would be possible without taking lots of drugs or something, because I've never experienced it before. And it was so powerful. It absolutely blew me away. So being able to give other people that experience is such a gift. It really is.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. I was walking around for the rest of the day. The next morning, I was walking around in a daze thinking, what just happened to me? What just happened? And my wife, who's a GP, was saying to me, sounds like you've got some sort of hypnosis going on there. And I think it means not hypnosis, but there's something that happens which just takes control. And I want more of it. I really do want more of it. And hopefully you'll stop traveling soon and I can come down with my wife and have a few sessions.
Definitely. You know what happened to you though, Sanj? You tapped into your body intelligence. You didn't use this. And that's the problem we have. We're constantly thinking, we're overthinking things, we're reading into things, we wake up in a bad mood, everything's a bit negative. If we get our heads out the way, we can let our bodies heal themselves. Because, our gut is our second brain. Some people call it the first brain.
Yeah, I call it my first brain. I really do.
Yeah. So this is the thing that keeps us back. Whereas this will keep us healthy, and this will lead us to, gut reaction, intuition. That isn't all thinking. That's all this other. That's
your microbiome. It's your vagus nerve from your gut telling your brain what to do.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that's an important thing for us to learn. I again, before I went into this process, I didn't realize that. I always overthought everything. I had anxiety. Overthinking was my thing, and with this, I've managed to stop it. Not all the time. Obviously, I'm human. The negative thoughts still come up, but it has helped me, get out of that and just trust my body and surrender into it. Because we all want to control. I'm a big control freak, and through inner dance, you have to surrender, otherwise it doesn't work. And
go on. No, go on.
And within that surrendering, you realize if you let go of control, then you let your body do what it's laterally meant to do.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that fasting TV program that you sent me.
Yeah.
You don't need to have all these external things. Your body can recalibrate itself. Yeah. And it does. That's how it works. It's that's why that program was so interesting to me.
Yes, I've actually learned that through hot and cold treatment. So I'm addicted to saunas and then an ice plunge, and I did that this morning. And what I've learned is that when you operate at such extremes, your senescent cells start eating each other. They start destroying and getting rid of the toxins. And I've actually found that really works. It's the inner healing of yourself. And I'm all with that. And what I really love about your approach is it's not out there everywhere, is it? It's not plastered on every billboard. It's not plastered on every magazine or Instagram. Unlike, there's lots of breathwork techniques and energy techniques that are putting virtual reality glasses on stuff and dancing around like and that, which I'm sure works, has its space, but yours is understated. And I believe that's where the authenticity comes through it, and I think it's people like me. It's my duty to spread the word. And on that note, Lisa, how do people find out more about it, and how do they book a class, and how do they follow you?
Amazing. Well, Sanj, I'm really excited because my teacher, Pi, I sent you his book, he's an extraordinary guy. And this is why it's understated. And this is why it's because of him. He does everything for donation. He gives away all of his knowledge. He's an extraordinary man.
Yep.
And he has asked me and my friend Tom, who I hold the classes with, unfortunately you didn't meet him, to run a year-long study program. So you learn about how the body works, how energy works, you learn about history, you learn about so many different things. There's so many different components. The knowledge is vast. So you're on the study program for a year, and then you learn. You can also, by the end of it, you could be in a dance facilitator. But the people who are coming on this journey they don't all want to be facilitators. They just want to learn and grow. So I will be starting that in December, and I'm super excited about that. I'd love you to join. Obviously, I'd really love you to join.
I would love to.
So it's going to be online mainly, and then once a month we're all going to meet up in person, and then I'm going to do show you hands-on how everything works. So that's super exciting. So if you're interested in joining that, you can reach out to me on my website, which is www.lisabutcher.com, or on my Instagram, which is where I post my classes and up-and-coming things, which is Lisa Butcher Official. And just reach out to me and I can let you know more about it.
And you have classes at the 4 in King's Cross as well,
I do, lovely. I have it once every month. I also do one-on-ones. I do, I'm beginning to do these, I'm still trying to format it like these, I call them pods, but it's like you pay for like 6 weeks, and what I will do is I'll work out a program for you. So I'll do hypnotherapy mixed within a dance, mixed with other modalities. I teach Reiki as well. So they're different things I'm going to be putting up on my website for next year. So I'm quite excited about all that.
We're going to work together on this because I'm doing something similar around the entire health and nutrition space, and with the emotional, physical, and kind of healing approach. And so we should compare notes.
I would honestly, I would really love that. And how can people find you?
sanjpathak.com is the website. I'm on Instagram as Sanj Pathak Life Coach, and hopefully off the back of this podcast, which will soon be on Apple and Spotify. And again, Lisa, all the details that you've just given are going to be in the show notes, and so people will be able to find you from there. Lisa, that's been amazing. Is there anything else that you want to talk about whilst the opportunity's there?
Can't think. I'm sure I'll hang up this phone call. But oh God, I wish I said. But no, I can't think of anything at the moment. But thank you.
No, that's. I'm really humbled to have you on the show. It's gone much better than I thought, and it's the one episode where I've actually not referred to my notes all around me that much, because I think it's just something that I've experienced so deeply and feel so connected with it, and so I want to keep going on. I want to just
see. This is the thing. It's attraction, not promotion, right? And it's only because you've experienced it, you come from that place of experience, that you are able to. It's very hard to sell this because it's an internal thing. I looked at what you're doing and I couldn't sell it. It couldn't sell it to me. As I said, I came in skeptical. Yeah. And I think, but if people hear me talk about it, Sanj, that bloody macho Punjabi guy, if he's talking about it, right, there must be something in it. Oh, amazing. I really appreciate it. It's been so lovely chatting to you and connecting with you, and I really appreciate your time, and thank you for asking me to do this. It's been really special.
No problem. I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode. Lisa has been so open and transparent. It's been very humbling for me. My one hope is that this episode will remind you to hit the pause button in our truly frantic lives, to listen to your inner voice, to align your conscious actions to your subconscious mind in an effort to align your mind and body. I can tell you from my own experience, if the inner dance has resolved my sleep issues that I've had all my life in one session, it's already starting to make me grow young. If you've enjoyed what you've listened to and you want to find out more, please hit the subscribe button or the follow button. If you want to find out more about me, please visit my website, www.sanjpathak.com, my Instagram profile @Sanj Pathak Life Coach, or just simply send me a message on my email, which is sanj@sanjpathak.com. Thank you for listening.